The night Marcus Morrison pushed his 7 months pregnant wife Elena and her sick mother out into the freezing blizzard to celebrate his engagement party to his mistress Sarah, he had no idea the pregnant wife he divorced, the pregnant wife he shoved into 15-degree snow while her mother collapsed clutching her chest, was actually the billionaire owner of Caldwell Global Holdings, the massive real estate empire where his entire family had built their careers for the past 8 years. Every luxury property Marcus's father Gerald developed as senior VP of acquisitions, every executive decision his mother Linda coordinated as chief of staff, every regional contract Marcus himself closed as director of luxury development, every commission his mistress Sarah earned in client relations, all of it came from the company the pregnant wife Marcus divorced, humiliated, and pushed into the snow actually owned. The company that paid for the very mansion where Marcus shoved his pregnant ex-wife into a Christmas Eve blizzard, where his mistress Sarah wore Elena's dead grandmother's wedding dress stolen from storage, where Marcus's entire family watched through the window as the pregnant wife he divorced dragged her dying mother through the snow, 7 months pregnant, half a mile in a sweater with no coat, no phone, no help. But what Marcus didn't know as he kissed his mistress and raised his champagne glass while his pregnant ex-wife collapsed in the snow outside, what his mother Linda didn't know as she physically held the door shut, screaming, "Let her freeze with her nobody mother," what Sarah didn't know as she celebrated in a stolen wedding dress, was that the pregnant wife Marcus pushed into the snow had spent 3 years documenting every cruelty, every humiliation, every moment of betrayal while running a billion-dollar empire they never knew existed. And when Elena finally made that one quiet phone call from the hospital bed where doctors were fighting to save her mother's life and her baby's life after that brutal night in the snow, what she did to the husband who pushed his pregnant wife into a blizzard crushed Marcus so completely, devastated him so thoroughly, that he would spend the rest of his life understanding exactly what it feels like to lose everything that matters in a single frozen moment. But what did the pregnant wife Marcus pushed into the snow do from that hospital bed that crushed him beyond recovery? How did Marcus react when he discovered the pregnant wife he divorced and shoved into freezing snow owned the company his entire family had built their lives on? Why was his cousin Rebecca suddenly screaming, "No, Elena, please, not them too, not like you destroyed James," as if she'd witnessed this exact devastation before? And what didn't Sarah know about the stolen wedding dress she was wearing and the pregnant wife she celebrated replacing while Marcus pushed Elena into the snow? 3 hours before Marcus pushed Elena into the snow, she'd been sitting in her modest apartment across town, the one Marcus used to mock for being too small, too plain, too embarrassing to bring his colleagues to. Her mother Catherine sat beside her on the worn sofa, hands trembling slightly from the dementia that was slowly stealing her memories. Asking for the third time that hour why Elena looked so sad. Elena had pressed her hand against her swollen belly, feeling her daughter kick, and tried to explain again that she just needed to pick up the last of her things from Marcus's house. Her piano books, the few photographs from their wedding, her grandmother's jewelry box that she'd stored in the guest room closet 3 years ago. Catherine had squeezed her daughter's hand with surprising strength, her eyes suddenly clear in that way that sometimes happened between the fog. "You don't have to go there, sweetheart. Whatever's in that house isn't worth your dignity." But Elena had already received the lawyer's letter. Marcus was getting remarried to Sarah, the woman he'd been sleeping with for the last year of their marriage. The woman who worked 3 floors below him at Caldwell Global Holdings in the client relations department Elena had personally approved the budget for. And if Elena didn't collect her belongings by Christmas, they'd be disposed of. Those were the exact words, disposed of. Like she was garbage. Like their 3 years of marriage had been garbage. Like the baby currently using her ribs as a punching bag was garbage. So Elena had helped her mother into her coat, driven them through the early evening snow in her old Honda that Marcus used to refuse to be seen in, and arrived at the Morrison family estate at exactly 6:47 p.m. The house was lit up like a palace, every window glowing, cars lining the circular driveway, music and laughter spilling out into the frozen air. Elena had sat in her car for a full minute, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching shadows move behind the curtains. She recognized that house, Of course she did. She'd approved the construction budget personally 5 years ago when Caldwell Global Holdings expanded into luxury residential properties. She'd signed off on the Italian marble Gerald had insisted on, the crystal chandeliers Linda had demanded, the smart home system Marcus had requested. She'd paid for every brick, every fixture, every piece of furniture they'd used to build their perfect life, and they had no idea. No idea at all. Catherine had touched her arm gently. Elena, let's just go home. You don't need anything from these people. But Elena had already seen her grandmother's wedding dress through the front window, the ivory lace gown with hand-sewn pearls that had been in her family for 4 generations. The dress her grandmother wore when she married the man who built Caldwell Industries from nothing. The dress Elena's father had saved when the company nearly went bankrupt in the 90s. The dress Elena had stored carefully in the guest room closet, wrapped in preservation tissue, waiting for the daughter she was now carrying to maybe wear one day. Sarah was wearing it, standing in the foyer, twirling for guests who clapped and cheered. Marcus standing beside her with his hand on her waist, grinning like he'd won some prize he deserved. And Elena felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had been barely holding together for the 6 months since Marcus had served her with divorce papers while she was in her first trimester, vomiting into a toilet, carrying his child. She'd gotten out of the car, helped her mother up the icy steps, and knocked on the door of the house her company owned. Linda Morrison had answered, her face transforming from hostess smile to pure disgust in half a second. What are you doing here? You weren't invited. This is a private family celebration. Elena had kept her voice steady, professional, the voice she used in board meetings when someone questioned her authority. I'm here to collect my belongings. The lawyer said I had until Christmas. I just need my piano books and my grandmother's jewelry box. I'll be 10 minutes. But Linda had stepped into the doorway, blocking her path, and called over her shoulder. Marcus, your ex-wife is here. She's trying to ruin your engagement party. And suddenly Marcus was there, with Sarah pressed against his side, still wearing that stolen dress. And behind them, Elena could see the entire Morrison family and Sarah's family, maybe 20 people total, all turning to stare at the pregnant woman in the doorway. Marcus's face had flushed red, that angry color he got when he felt embarrassed. Elena, what the hell? You couldn't wait until after the holidays? You had to show up tonight looking like that and make this awkward? Looking like that, pregnant with his child, 7 months heavy with the daughter he told her he didn't want, the daughter he'd said was her problem now. Elena had felt her mother's hand slip into hers, Catherine's grip weak but trying to be supportive. I just want my things, Marcus. I'm not here to cause problems. Just my books and my grandmother's jewelry. Then we'll leave. Sarah had laughed then, a high, cruel sound that cut through the Christmas music playing inside. Your grandmother's jewelry? Babe, is she talking about that old box we found in the closet? The one with the ugly vintage stuff? Marcus had shrugged, not meeting Elena's eyes. I threw it out. It was taking up space Sarah needed for her things. The world had tilted. Elena's grandmother's jewelry, the pieces her grandmother had worn, the heirlooms meant for her daughter, thrown out like trash because Sarah needed closet space. You threw it out, Elena repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus, those were irreplaceable. Those were my family's history. That jewelry survived the Depression, survived my grandfather's death, survived. It was junk, Marcus interrupted, his voice hard. Old junk nobody wanted, just like all your other crap. The piano books went out with last month's garbage. This is Sarah's house now. There's nothing of yours left here. It was Catherine who spoke next, her voice suddenly strong despite the dementia, despite the way her hands shook. This is not your house, young man. This is my daughter's house. Everything you have came from my daughter, and you're too blind and too stupid to even see it. The slap came so fast Elena didn't see it coming. Linda's hand across Catherine's face, the sound cracking through the cold air like a gunshot. Catherine stumbled backward. Her heart medication was inside her purse, which was in Elena's car, and Elena caught her mother just as her knees gave out. Don't you dare speak to my son that way, you delusional old woman. Guards, call security and have these people removed from the property. Elena had looked up at Marcus then, her mother sagging in her arms, and seen something she'd never seen before. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in his eyes. No love, no regret, no recognition that he'd once promised to cherish her. Just cold contempt for the woman he'd erased from his life. "Marcus," she'd said quietly, "please, my mother needs her medication. It's in the car. Just let me get her to the car." But Linda had started screaming then, screaming that Elena was embarrassing them, that she was trash, that she'd always been trash, that Marcus deserved better, deserved Sarah, deserved happiness. And Sarah's family had started filming on their phones, laughing, calling Elena pathetic, calling Catherine crazy. And Gerald had appeared in the doorway, saying they needed to remove this disturbance before neighbors complain. And through it all, Marcus had just stood there, Sarah pressed against his side in that stolen wedding dress, and done absolutely nothing. Rebecca had pushed through the crowd then, Marcus's cousin, her face white with horror. "Marcus, stop this. You don't understand. You don't know what you're doing. Elena is—" But Linda had cut her off. "Shut up, Rebecca. Nobody cares what you think. You already ruined your own marriage. Don't ruin Marcus's happiness too." And that's when Marcus had moved, not to help, not to intervene, but to grab. His hands locked on Elena's shoulders, on her mother's arm, and he shoved, hard, violent, deliberate. Elena had felt her feet slip on the icy steps, felt her mother's weight pulling her sideways, felt her pregnant belly hit the iron railing as they tumbled into the snow. She heard the door slam, heard the lock click, heard Linda's voice through the glass. Let her freeze with her nobody mother. Let her learn what happens when trash tries to contaminate quality. Elena had landed hard on her side in a snowdrift, her mother beside her gasping, clutching her chest. No coats, no phones, no medication. Just snow and wind and darkness, and the sound of celebration continuing inside the house. Through the window, Elena watched Marcus return to Sarah, pull her into a deep kiss, raise a champagne glass while everyone applauded. He didn't look back, not once. Sarah twirled in the stolen wedding dress, laughing, radiant, victorious. And Elena felt something inside her die and something else ignite. She dragged her mother up from the snow, wrapped her own sweater around Catherine's shoulders, and started walking. 1/2 mile to the main road. 7 months pregnant, 15 degrees. Her mother's lips turning blue, breath coming in short, painful gasps. Elena's hands had gone numb. Her baby had stopped kicking. Terror gave her strength she didn't know she had. She made it 4/10 of a mile before her legs gave out, before the pain in her abdomen became unbearable, before Catherine collapsed completely, unconscious in the snow. Elena had screamed into the darkness, knowing no one would hear, knowing Marcus had pushed his pregnant wife and her dying mother into a blizzard and gone back to his party without a single shred of conscience. But headlights had appeared. A delivery driver taking a shortcut, seeing 2 figures in the snow, stopping, calling 911. Elena had felt hands lifting her, voices telling her to stay awake, sirens cutting through the night. The last thing she remembered before the ambulance doors closed was looking back at the Morrison mansion, still blazing with light and music and celebration. The house her company owned, where the family her company employed had just tried to kill her, and she'd made a decision then. In the back of that ambulance with her mother dying beside her, and her baby's heartbeat fading on the monitor. She was done hiding, done testing, done being merciful. Marcus wanted to see what she really was. He was about to find out exactly what the pregnant wife he pushed into the snow could do when she finally stopped pretending to be powerless. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Elena lay in the bed with monitors beeping around her, IV lines snaking into her arms, her hand pressed against her stomach where doctors had just confirmed her daughter's heartbeat was dangerously irregular. Across from her, her mother Catherine was in intensive care, hooked to machines that breathed for her heart too damaged from the cold and stress to function on its own. The doctor had been blunt. Another hour in that snow and both of them would have died. As it was, Catherine might not make it through the night. And Elena's baby, her daughter, showed signs of fetal distress that could mean permanent damage. The nurse had asked if there was anyone to call, any family who should know. Elena had said no. No family, just her. She didn't mention that her half-brother James Caldwell was probably in his own penthouse across the city. Didn't mention that one phone call could bring the full weight of the Caldwell empire crashing down. She just lay there feeling her daughter's weak kicks and thinking about Marcus's hands on her shoulders, shoving her into the snow. Thinking about Sarah laughing in her grandmother's dress. Thinking about Linda's voice screaming, "Let her freeze." A nurse brought her personal belongings in a plastic bag, her phone retrieved from her car. When she powered it on, there were 17 missed calls, all from Rebecca, Marcus's cousin who'd tried to warn him, who'd screamed that he didn't understand what he was doing. Elena listened to the voicemails with growing understanding. Rebecca sobbing that she'd tried to stop them, that she'd told Marcus he was making a terrible mistake, and that Linda had lost her mind. The last message was barely coherent. "Elena, please. I know what James did to me when I divorced him. I know what you're capable of. Please don't do to them what your brother did to me. They're stupid. They're cruel, but they don't know. Please." But Rebecca's begging only confirmed what Elena already knew. Her brother James had destroyed Rebecca systematically when she divorced him for being too quiet, too private, too unwilling to flaunt his wealth. He'd stripped her of everything, left her broken and dependent on the very family that had encouraged her to leave him. And Rebecca had learned too late that the Caldwell family didn't forgive betrayal. They documented it, they waited, and then they erased you. Elena pulled up her company's secure server on her phone. 3 years of documentation loaded onto the screen. Every family dinner where Linda called her worthless. Every time Marcus made her sit in the back seat when his colleagues rode with them because he was ashamed of how she dressed. Every moment Gerald suggested she wasn't good enough for their family. Every text message between Marcus and Sarah, starting 8 months before he'd asked for the divorce. Every expense report showing Marcus using company funds to buy Sarah gifts. Every piece of jewelry he'd taken from their safe and given to his mistress. Every cruel word, every humiliation, every betrayal. All documented, all time-stamped, all legally admissible. She opened a new message to her executive team. 5 people who actually knew who she was, who'd been protecting her identity for 8 years while she ran the empire remotely. Her CFO, her general counsel, her head of HR, her chief of security, and James. She typed 4 words. "Initiate Morrison protocol, complete erasure." Her finger hovered over send. In the ICU, a machine monitoring her mother's heart started beeping frantically. Nurses rushed in. Elena watched through the window as they worked on Catherine, shocking her heart back into rhythm, and she thought about Marcus's face when he'd shoved them into the snow. That cold contempt, that absolute certainty that he was better than her, that she meant nothing. She pressed send. Within 60 seconds, her general counsel replied, "Confirmed. Legal termination documents prepared. Breach of conduct, misuse of company resources, hostile work environment, theft of personal property. Security has been notified. HR is processing immediate termination for Gerald Morrison, Linda Morrison, Marcus Morrison, and Sarah Chen. Housing forfeiture notice will be served within the hour. Asset freeze in progress." Her CFO sent a follow-up. "All Morrison family accounts tied to company benefits have been suspended. Pension access revoked pending investigation. Outstanding loans called in immediately. Credit lines closed." Her head of security added, "Building access revoked. All security footage from tonight's incident has been secured as evidence. Police report filed for assault of pregnant woman and elderly woman with heart condition. Restraining orders being processed." And then James called. Her half-brother's voice was cold, precise, deadly calm. "Little sister, I just saw the hospital report. Tell me what happened." Elena's voice cracked as she told him. About the party, the dress, the jewelry thrown away, Linda hitting Catherine, Marcus shoving them into the snow. About dragging her dying mother through a blizzard while 7 months pregnant. About lying in the snow knowing they were going to die while Marcus kissed Sarah and celebrated. The silence on the other end lasted exactly 5 seconds. Then James spoke, and Elena heard the same ice in his voice that had destroyed Rebecca. "They put their hands on you. They pushed my pregnant sister into the snow. They nearly killed our mother's best friend and your unborn child." Catherine wasn't actually related to James, but he'd always called her family. "Elena, The protocol you initiated covers employment and assets. That's not enough. Not for this. Let me handle the rest. What are you going to do? Elena asked, though she already knew. She'd watched James dismantle Rebecca's entire social world when Rebecca had humiliated him. I'm going to make sure Marcus Morrison understands what he actually lost, James said quietly. I'm going to make sure that every single person who watched you get pushed into the snow knows exactly who you are. And I'm going to make absolutely certain that the consequences for putting hands on a Caldwell are so severe, so complete, that no one ever makes that mistake again. Elena closed her eyes, feeling her daughter kick weakly against her hand. James, I don't want revenge. I just want them to leave us alone. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. She wanted them to hurt, wanted them to feel the humiliation, the betrayal, the absolute destruction of everything they'd built on her generosity. Wanted Marcus to understand that the woman he'd thrown away like garbage was the only reason he'd ever had anything worth having. This isn't revenge, James corrected gently. This is consequences. There's a difference. And Elena, they need to face them before they do this to someone else. Someone who doesn't have the resources to fight back. He paused and his voice softened. How's your baby? How's Catherine? Catherine's in ICU. They don't know if she'll wake up. The baby, the doctors are worried about brain damage from the stress and cold. Elena's voice broke completely. James, what if I lose them both? What if Marcus pushing us into that snow kills my daughter? What if my mother dies never knowing that She couldn't finish. Couldn't say that Catherine might die without ever knowing her daughter was a billionaire, because Elena had been too afraid of being loved for the wrong reasons. Catherine knows everything that matters, James said firmly. She knows you're kind, brilliant, strong, and that you love someone who didn't deserve you. The money doesn't change that, Elena. It never did. He paused. I'm coming to the hospital. Don't make any more decisions until I get there. And Elena, the Morrison family is about to learn something very important. You can push a Caldwell into the snow, but you can't stop the avalanche that comes after. He hung up and Elena was alone again with the monitors beeping and her baby's irregular heartbeat echoing in the quiet room. Through her phone, she watched the protocol unfold in real time. Security footage uploaded to secure servers, police reports filed, news alerts being prepared, her PR team drafting a statement about the secret CEO of Caldwell Global Holdings. And somewhere across the city, in the mansion her company owned, Marcus was probably still celebrating his engagement to Sarah, completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. Elena pulled up one more file, the deed to the Morrison family estate, property of Caldwell Global Holdings, provided as part of Gerald Morrison's executive compensation package. Clause 17, subsection 4. In the event of termination for cause, all company housing must be vacated within 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action and trespassing charges. She forwarded it to her legal team with a single instruction. Enforce tonight. Marcus was on his third glass of champagne when his phone started ringing. Then his father's phone. Then his mother's. Then Sarah's. All at once, like some coordinated attack, and the celebration music suddenly felt too loud, the laughter too sharp. He watched his father Gerald step into the hallway to answer, watched his face drain of color, watched him lower the phone with a hand that shook. Marcus, we need to talk. Right now. Everyone out. Party's over. Sarah's family protested, glasses still raised, but Gerald's voice cut through the room like a knife. I said get out. Now! Within minutes, the house emptied, leaving just the Morrison family standing in the foyer where 3 hours ago Marcus had shoved Elena into the snow. Linda clutched her phone, staring at an email that made no sense. Marcus read over her shoulder. Termination for cause effective immediately. Caldwell Global Holdings. Hostile work environment. Assault of company executive. Misuse of company resources. The words swam in front of his eyes. What company executive? Marcus demanded. What assault? Dad, what is this? But Gerald was reading his own termination letter, his face gray. It says we assaulted Elena Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Global Holdings, and her mother Catherine. That security footage shows us physically removing a pregnant executive from company property. Oh God, Marcus. What did we do? Elena Caldwell, Linda whispered. That's not possible. Elena's nobody. She was just Marcus's embarrassing ex-wife who works some entry-level job. She can't be. But Sarah's phone screen told a different story. News alerts loading one after another. Breaking, reclusive billionaire CEO Elena Caldwell hospitalized after alleged assault. Caldwell Global Holdings fires entire executive family after attack on pregnant owner. Mystery CEO finally revealed, the woman behind $8 billion empire. And there were photos. Elena at a ribbon-cutting ceremony 5 years ago, face partially hidden behind dark glasses. Elena's signature on the company and corporation documents from 8 years ago, when her father died. Elena's bio on the private executive portal Marcus had never had clearance to access. Elena Caldwell, owner and CEO, net worth $8.3 billion, degree from Juilliard, former concert pianist, took over family empire at age 24. Marcus felt his knees give out, sat down hard on the marble floor of the foyer. The marble Elena's company had paid for, in the house Elena's company owned, where he'd just shoved the owner into a blizzard while she was pregnant with his child. No, he whispered. No, that's impossible. I would have known. In 3 years of marriage, I would have known. But Rebecca was there suddenly, crying, her face destroyed. You wouldn't have known because she didn't want you to know, Marcus. Just like James didn't want me to know. They test people. They live simply and quietly, and they wait to see if you'll love them for who they are instead of what they have. And you failed. Just like I failed. And now they're going to destroy us just like James destroyed me. The front door opened without anyone knocking, and a man in a suit walked in carrying a briefcase and flanked by 2 security guards. Gerald Morrison, Linda Morrison, Marcus Morrison, Sarah Chen. I'm here to serve you with immediate eviction notice. This property belongs to Caldwell Global Holdings. As terminated employees, you no longer have authorization to occupy company housing. You have 2 hours to remove personal belongings. Anything remaining will be disposed of. 2 hours, Linda shrieked. We've lived here for 8 years. You can't just throw us out in the middle of the night. This is our home. The lawyer's face remained impassive. This home is valued at $4.2 million and was provided as part of Mr. Morrison's compensation package. That compensation has been terminated. You're also being served with a civil lawsuit for assault, theft of personal property, and emotional distress. Miss Billionaire, Caldwell is seeking full custody of the unborn child with termination of parental rights for Mr. Morrison based on documented abandonment and physical assault of the mother while pregnant. Marcus couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Termination of parental rights, his daughter. The baby he'd told Elena was her problem. The baby he'd pushed into the snow still inside her body. Where is she? Where's Elena? I need to talk to her. I need to explain. But the lawyer was already turning away. Ms. Caldwell is in intensive care at St. Catherine's Hospital, along with her mother, who suffered a major cardiac event after you assaulted them and forced them into a blizzard. Her attorney has instructed me to inform you that a restraining order is being filed. You're not to come within 500 feet of Ms. Caldwell, her mother, or the hospital. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm, her face panicked. Do something. Call someone. You know people at that company, right? You can fix this. But Marcus just laughed, a broken sound that hurt his throat. I don't know anyone, Sarah. I never knew anyone. Every person I thought I had a relationship with, every connection I thought I'd built, it was all Elena. She owned the company. She approved every hire, every promotion, every budget. I thought I was successful. I thought I'd earned my position. But it was all her. Everything was always her. His phone buzzed with a new message from a number he didn't recognize. He opened it and felt his heart stop. It was a photo. Elena in a hospital bed, bruises on her face, IV lines in her arms, her hand on her pregnant stomach, and a message. This is what you did, Marcus. This is the woman you loved who loved you back, who gave you everything while you gave her nothing, who's fighting for her life and our daughter's life because you pushed us into the snow. I hope Sarah was worth it. I hope that stolen dress and those stolen moments of feeling superior were worth losing everything. Because you'll never see me again. You'll never meet your daughter. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that the only woman who ever loved you for who you were is the woman you destroyed. Signed, the nobody you threw away. Marcus was still staring at that photo when the security guards started escorting his family out of the house. Still staring when Linda collapsed crying on the front steps. Still staring when Sarah screamed that this was all his fault, that he'd ruined her life, that she never wanted to see him again. Still staring hours later when he stood in his childhood friend's spare bedroom with nothing but a suitcase, finally understanding that he hadn't just lost Elena. He'd lost the only real thing he'd ever had, and there was no amount of begging, no amount of money, no amount of anything that could ever bring her back. Across the city in a hospital room, Elena held her mother's hand and felt her daughter kick stronger now, the heartbeat steadier. James sat beside her, making calls, ensuring the Morrison family would face every legal consequence available. And Elena finally let herself cry. Not for Marcus, not for what she'd lost, but for what she'd always deserved and never got. Someone who loved her for the music in her soul instead of the money in her account. Someone who saw her worth without needing a net worth statement to prove it. Her daughter would never know that kind of conditional love. Elena would make sure of it, even if it meant her daughter grew up without a father, because no father was better than a father who pushed his pregnant wife into the snow and never looked back. Marcus had wanted to know who she really was. Now he knew, and knowing had crushed him completely, just like she'd promised it would. If this story touched your heart, if you felt Elena's pain and Marcus's devastation, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story that will make you feel this deeply. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? What would you have done in Elena's position? We read every single comment, and your stories inspire ours. Thank you for being part of this community where we explore the deepest truths of the human heart, one story at a time.